Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's CISA webinar. We're coming to you live on May 23rd. For any NLC webinar first-timers here who don't know, our CISA webinars get their name from the Greek word for learning. Today, you're going to be learning about CISA priority telecommunications services, how you can enhance your emergency communications capability. Your instructor today will be Kathy Orcutt. My name is Brooke Warrington. I'm the Training and Development Specialist here at the Native Learning Center. We're also thrilled that everyone could join us here today. If you could follow along while I read the disclaimer aloud. This webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes. The material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. We also have our copyright infringement law pictured here. So just a friendly reminder that the materials are protected by copyright, trademark, trade secret, and other intellectual property laws. Before we get started, I want to familiarize you with some of the features available and how you can interact with today's webinar. If you look at the top of your screen, you'll see an icon of a hand with a plus sign. By clicking that icon, you could either raise your hand, agree, disagree, show applause, show laughter, or even signal requests like asking the instructor to speak louder or slow down. Now your screen should look similar to this graphic. To the bottom left, you'll see a pod that says Files. Here you'll find any handouts or appendix items included in today's presentation. Feel free to download a copy for yourself. Just hover over the item you want to download with your mouse, then click the arrow pointing downwards to download and save it onto your device. The second pod to the right labeled web links is where you'll find our survey about today's webinar, along with the link to receive our weekly newsletter, connect with the Native Learning Center on LinkedIn, and any other resource links that'll be seen throughout today's presentation. And then finally, all the way over to the right, we have a chat pod available. This is how you'll communicate with the instructor and the NLC staff. If you have any questions during the presentation, we welcome you to send them in by using the chat box. Just type your message in the space that says type here and hit enter, or click the up arrow icon button to submit. We do encourage class participation, so feel free to write in those questions or those comments. And if you're having any tech support issues, that could also be submitted. Know that most can be solved by leaving and rejoining the meeting room. Let's all go ahead and get the chat box going together by typing in your name, where you're joining us from, your tribal affiliation, and your work or your role in Indian country. All right, folks. With that, it's with great pleasure that I introduce today's webinar instructor, Kathy Orcutt. Kathy, I'm going to hand it off to you now.
Great, thank you. And I apologize that my camera is not working on my laptop, so I'm sorry. I would normally be on camera so you can see me, but that just didn't work out today. So I am Kathy Orcutt, and I am here on behalf of CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, to provide you with information about priority telecommunications services. These are a tool to help you maintain continuity of operations when something happens to interfere with your ability to communicate on the phone. I am the PAR for regions 9 and 10. Oops, that's a mistake on there. I just recently changed regions. It says 8 and 10, but I'm 9 and 10. And I live in Oregon, and I am happy to be able to present this information to you all today, as I think it's very critical that people utilize these services as best they can. So CISA's mission is to lead the national effort to understand, manage, and reduce risk to cyber and physical infrastructure. So part of that is the ability, again, to have that continuity of operations. And part of CISA is the Emergency Communications Division, which is where these services fall. And they also do cybersecurity and physical security assessments for organizations that are federal, state, tribal, territorial, national, all of those folks. So if you're interested in something like that, we can get you connected with those folks. So today we're going to talk about this emergency communications offerings. And there are a lot of risk scenarios that can impact your ability to communicate, and they aren't necessarily something negative. So yes, there are cyber attacks and emergencies and extreme weather situations like we're seeing in the Midwest with tornadoes right now. But there's also concerts and festivals and all kinds of other things that are enjoyable and fun where people are using their phones and causing network congestion. And you still need to be able to do your business even when those things happen. So we want to make sure that you're able to do that with greater probability. So priority telecommunications services is a suite of services that allow you to communicate when networks are degraded or congested and you get priority treatment. So you're getting moved ahead of everyone else that's trying to use the network. I like to say these are continuity card or continuity services because really that is what they are. We want you to be able to do your business when you need to. So again, PTS is often used in emergencies. That's, of course, a very obvious use of the services when there's something significant that happens. I live in the Pacific Northwest. We have a lot of fires here. We also have a potential big earthquake at some point coming. We had Mount St. Helens many years ago, and you just never know what's going to happen. So these services are absolutely something you would want to use in the event that one of those things happens. However, we also want you to know that you can use these anytime you need them. So they are for you to use when you need to communicate work-related information. That may be with a coworker, it may be with another organization, whatever it is, we want you to use these services. So I had a fire department in one state that was impacted greatly by a festival that occurred every year in the neighboring community. And every time that festival occurred for the 5 or 6 days it happened, they struggled with network congestion and the ability to communicate just regular everyday information. And so the example I gave them, if they got dispatched to a big fire and they needed to pull up a building schematic on their mobile data terminal, and that was not working and they had to call IT, they could use it for something like that if this festival was going on and they had congestion. So we want to encourage you to use the services anytime you need them for whatever work-related business you're conducting. So the key features of the services, we'll start with GETS, which is the Government Emergency Telecommunications Service. This service gives you priority calling over the wireline commercial phone network. So what you would think of if you had a desk phone or a satellite phone or even a cell phone. The services work on a cell phone, and I'm going to explain that on a later slide. GETS is a card with a PIN, and it gives you the ability to call out of an area with congestion, and it also allows you to potentially call into an area where there's congestion. For example, you're at a conference maybe, or you're out of town. Something significant happens back at your workplace. There's a lot of congestion there because of what's going on, and you cannot get through to someone you need to talk to get critical information. You could use GETS to call them on your cell phone or on a landline phone. So that's important to know that you can call out of a congested area and into a congested area. And the services are accessible worldwide. If you're in another country, you can absolutely use these services. However, you only get priority once you hit the phone network in the United States. So as long as there's no congestion where you are and the congestion lies in our network in the US, you'll be okay. WPS is the wireless priority service, and it gives you the same privileges. So you get priority calling privileges in the wireless network. So the two services give you the same thing. They give you priority calling, they move you to the head of the line, they give you the first available phone circuit or radio channel if you're on a wireless device, and you're moved ahead of everyone else. The difference is how you utilize them. GETS, you have a calling card essentially with a special dial access phone number and a PIN number that's unique to you. So if you were to hand that card to anyone else, they could also make a GETS call. We don't recommend you do that, of course, but that's just for an example. With WPS, this is a subscription to your account, your cell phone account. So both of these services cost nothing. You pay nothing to set it up, you pay nothing monthly, and you pay nothing to make a call. But WPS is a subscription, is what we call it, added to your cell phone account. And to access that, you would dial *272 and then the destination telephone number. So the difference between the two services is GETS, you have a calling card that you're going to need the information on that card to get your priority privileges. WPS is connected to your cell phone, and you have to be using your phone to get those priority privileges. So that's the difference between the two, really. WPS is available on all the nationwide carriers, so T-Mobile, Sprint, Verizon, AT&T. AT&T, FirstNet, and then some regional carriers, US Cellular, C Spire, and Cellcom. There is a dialer app, and if you're interested in using the dialer app, you're welcome to go out now and download it, and I'm going to go over how to set it up in a minute. But you would look for PTS dialer in whatever store you use to get your apps. TSP is Telecommunications Service Priority, and it is priority installation and restoration of your voice and data circuits. It's the physical circuit, the last mile of your circuit, and you can get that repaired in place, or you can get your circuits installed at an alternate location if you had to evacuate your facility, for example, and you needed to set up at a different location, a backup location. TSP would encourage your carriers to respond with priority treatment. So you would be, again, you're moving to the head of the line ahead of anybody else that needs phone repair. So any TSP customer has to be serviced first, and that's required by the FCC. TSP is a tariffed offering, so there are fees associated with TSP. It is a budgetary issue to consider. However, it's probably a lot less expensive than trying to wait for someone to come out and fix your circuits and all the things connected with that kind of problem. So the fees range all across the board. They could be very minimal to, I've seen $16 per circuit per month in some places. So every state is different and every carrier is different. So I can't really give you an exact amount, but I always tell everyone, if you're interested in TSP, I'd be happy to give you more information. And you can always reach out to your carrier or carriers and ask them to provide you with the Public Utilities Commission fee schedule. And you can typically get that from the person at the carrier who is the government relations person. Okay, so who should have priority services? Well, there's a lot of people that are eligible, and we saw this change quite a bit with COVID. That got a little wider, the eligible organizations. Currently today, we have just over 500,000 WPS users and less than that for GETS. So we have a long way to go to reach the goal of 10 million users. But these organizations you see on the screen are the 16 critical infrastructure sectors that CISA has identified as crucial to their communities and the nation. So if you have partner organizations that could benefit from having these services, we encourage you to share them. It's important for you to be able to communicate with everyone you need to reach during an emergency. So it's really critical that the people in your community that need these services know about them. So just a little bit more information on GETS. It is not only going to give you completely end-to-end interoperable communications, meaning you could call from a landline phone to a cell phone or landline phone to a satellite phone. You're going to get end-to-end interoperable priority communications because you have priority. The person you're calling does not need to have these services for you to have priority. However, if they need to call you back and they don't have priority, that could be difficult. But you will have priority the entire length of your transaction because you have these services. The calls receive priority features in the WPS capable cellular network. So again, if you're calling a landline phone to a cell phone, or you're trying to reach someone on a cell phone in a congested area, you're going to get increased probability of your call going through. We typically see greater than 95% call completion rates. During the eclipse, we saw greater than 98% call completion rates. So the services work when they're used, and they're very beneficial to your organization. So for GETS, again, this is what the card looks like. If you don't have one already, this is what it would look like. As of last month, these are being provided digitally via email. So if you want a physical card to carry with you, you can request that. Otherwise, you will get everything in an email with all your information. It will look like this. You're just going to see a picture of it instead of an actual card. We recommend you carry this with you. If you don't want to carry it with you, you can take a screenshot of the front and the back of your card, so at least you have access to the information should you need it. You might be somewhere, again, where there's network congestion, the cellular network, or the cellular network is, down, and you may only have access to a landline telephone. So you do have to ensure you have a dial tone. That is important. You have to have that. Sometimes it can take longer to hear a dial tone when there's congestion. Once you get your dial tone, you're going to dial that 710 phone number. 710 phone number is on every single GETS card. That is the first piece of information that you're going to enter that's going to key the carrier network that you are a priority caller and you're about to enter your PIN number. Something important to know while we're here, the 710 area code is not programmed into the standard area code tables in PBX phone systems, so a phone system that's connected to multiple locations, essentially. So that has to get added to your PBX phone system in the area code tables. If you're at a location that is not your normal workplace, they may not have that programmed in. So there's alternate phone numbers to use on the back of the card. If this phone number doesn't work, you have other options. So you're going to dial that access phone number, you're going to hear a tone, and then the PIN number would be entered. And then you're going to hear a voice prompt say, please enter the destination telephone number. And that is when you would enter that information. On occasion, you might reach an actual person, an actual operator. It does happen. It's happened to me twice in 5 years. The first time I said I'm making a test call and they just hung up on me, that's fine. The second time the operator said, well, give me your PIN number and I'll try to see if we can get your call through. So don't be surprised if that happens. Occasionally it does. Again, this is just a little more information. That PIN number is individual to you, so we recommend you don't share it. But if you're in a situation that is dire and someone else needs to make a call, absolutely share it if you have to. And during major events like hurricane season, we just the other day got a generic PIN number from the service center that we can give out to any organization or individual that needs to be able to have access to make a GETS call. So if you have a long-term event and you have people coming in from other locations that don't have GETS and they might need it, you can get a generic PIN that can be shared with everyone that gets turned off after your event is over. Okay, on the back of the card, you're going to see those alternate phone numbers I was talking about. So if you can't get the phone number on the front to work for some reason, turn it over right away and use one of the other numbers and then put your PIN in and the destination phone number like you would anyway. There's 2 numbers there with red triangles next to them. Those numbers do have to be used if you're calling a toll-free number, an 800 number, just because of the way the system's engineered. So just something to know. There's instructions how to make a wireless call, which is again the *272 and the destination phone number. On the right-hand side of the card in the blue area, you'll see a 24-hour assistance line. That is for the PTS Service Center, and they are fantastic. I've called a lot of service centers in my career. I had a 30-year career in public safety, and this is by far the best service center I've ever called for help. They're very responsive. They're quick to answer your questions and help you out. So if there's any questions that come about due to a technical issue, you just absolutely can't make a call or something strange is happening, they can troubleshoot to help you through that. They can also help you manage your account. So they have access to see that. The next piece of information is the familiarization call line. So that is for you to use as often as you need to feel comfortable using the services. If you want to make a familiarization call every day, we would not have a problem with that at all. We want you to get that muscle memory. We want you to remember you have the services. So when you need them, you can use them. So that is a number that's available to you to make a test call. And you'll hear a recorded message that says you've reached the GETS and WPS test call phone number, so on. You can also make your test calls to a loved one if you'd like to. That's totally fine too. If you're going to call home anyway, make that your test call for the month. Okay. I don't see any questions coming up, so hopefully everybody's clear on all of this. Oops. Sorry, there's some little arrows there. Okay, there we go. Okay, so best practices recommendations are to carry your card or your card information with you. We also recommend that you turn off Wi-Fi calling if you're going to use GETS on your cell phone. And again, I'm going to explain that in a future slide. Because we don't know that it will consistently work for you. A few weeks ago, AT&T had an outage and they were encouraging their users to use Wi-Fi calling to make calls because their cellular network was down. And I did have a user who used Wi-Fi calling and tested their services and it worked. So we just don't know that it will always work for you consistently. So it's best to turn it off. It could cause problems trying to make a call. This is very important. Don't use GETS to call 911. And there's 2 reasons for that. The first one is we don't know if your location information will be passed along to the dispatcher, and that could be crucial. That is very important that we get that they get that. And also 911 calls are already a little bit higher priority. So those calls are going to be moved ahead of GETS calls anyway. So you don't need it to call 911. Absolutely make your test calls as often as you need to or like to. Incorporate into your training exercises. In July, I'm doing a tabletop exercise. Well, I'm going to a tabletop exercise with CISA. They are doing a communications exercise with a college up in Bremerton to help them improve their understanding of what their communications capabilities are in the event of an emergency. So their primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency or PACE plan. We'll go through all of that and make sure that they all understand what they have available to them. Download and use the dialer app. We highly recommend that because it does make using the services quite a bit easier. And as long as you have cellular connectivity, that's probably how you're going to be making a call. And again, use those alternate carrier numbers on the back of your card. Again, if you're at a location that doesn't have 710 in their area code tables, you may not be able to use that area code. So just turn the card over real quick, use one of the other numbers, and then put your PIN in. Okay, WPS, again, you're getting the same thing. You're getting priority calling privileges. You're getting moved to the head of the line. And it is, again, that add-on feature to your cellular service is how we phrase that, but you're not paying anything to have it. It's available on all those carriers I mentioned earlier. And again, we see greater than 95% call completion rates. During the eclipse, it was between 98 and 100%. So that was great. One other thing I want to mention, prior to the eclipse, there was a request for expedited GETS and WPS services, and it was in excess of 1,200 requests or 1,200 cards and subscriptions. That can be done, but I highly encourage you to get these services ahead of time. Having been through many, many emergencies myself, that is not the time you want to try to have one more thing on your plate. If you have these services ahead of time, it's just like insurance you'd have for your car or your house. It's there, you know you have it, and you can use it when you need it. So while the Service Center will do expedites for events like that, absolutely, they will help as much as they can. It's just good to have the services before that and make sure that people know how to use them. So again, if you are not using the dialer app, the way you would make a WPS call is to dial *272 and then the destination phone number. Very, very easy. So you do have to have some cellular connectivity. So you have to have at least that little teeny first bar of service to use the services. I wish that we could get you cellular connectivity with the services, but they don't quite work that way. So you do have to have that. And again, this is just a little bit more information about how to make the call. So you have this slide deck for future reference if you want to refer back to this. Okay, so the dialer app. If you want to get the dialer app, it's very easy to use and download. It's totally free, just like GETS and WPS. It's free to use. It's going to access all of the contacts that are already on your device. So when you go to the contact button at the bottom of the screen there, it will open up your contacts. So you don't have to build a separate address or phone list in the app. You'll just be using what you have on your phone already. And it's very easy to set up. You just have to put your GETS PIN number in and you're good to go. It's going to do all the dialing for you. Earlier, I talked about making a combined call. So this is where we're going to talk about that because you can make a combined call on the dialer app. You can make a combined call the long way if you don't have the dialer app, but that is a lot of digits to dial. So we want to make sure that you know how to use the dialer app because it's the most effective way to use the services and it reduces error and makes everything easier. So there's 3 buttons there in the center of the screen that you'll see. There's a GETS button, there's a WPS button, and there's a combined button. So what the engineers tell us is the WPS button is probably going to work for you almost all the time. But on occasion, there may be congestion in the landline portion of the network, and cell phone calls do go across that on occasion. So when you are calling from one carrier to a different carrier, for example, I have T-Mobile, let's say Natalie on the call, she has Verizon, we'll say. She's going to try to call me, and her call is going to leave her Verizon network to get to my T-Mobile network, and it will have to go across the commercial wireline telephone network to do so. If the cellular network's working and the congestion's in the wireline network, that center button will help you get your call through. Or if there's congestion in both networks, if it's severe congestion because of a significant event, that center button is sort of the supercharge button, I guess I'll put it that way. So WPS and GETS, those will work for you. The center button will only work if you have both services, of course. If you only have WPS, then you would have to use the WPS only button all the time. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody, but please let me know if you have a question. Oh, we've got more arrows. Hang on. Okay. When you activate the WPS service on someone's phone, they are going to get this text message just indicating that the service has been added to their account. Please make a test call. It's really important if you're the point of contact on the account, the person who manages the services and adds and deletes people, that you let people know they're going to get this, because occasionally people have gotten this before their POC has told them it's coming and they think it's a spam text. And so just good to make sure that they know that it's coming and to make a test call. And to make a test call anytime they change devices. So if they get a new phone, they should change, or they should make a test call. If you update your operating system on your phone, it's always a good idea to make a test call. And if you change carriers, you absolutely need to make sure your point of contact knows, because that has to be updated in the online management portal, because this information is attached to your account number with the carrier. Okay, best practices here. You do need to have a signal. We recommend you use the dialer app. Confirm that your service has been activated when you get that text. And anytime you make a change, when you need these services is not the time to find out they're not working. So test calls, I cannot stress how important those are. And again, this is a service that is a low frequency, high importance kind of thing. It's just another tool in your toolbox. So I would encourage you to practice it in the way that you do anything else at your organization that you practice for emergencies. Make those test calls. I just talked about that. Incorporate the services into your training exercises. Absolutely do that. If you're in a staff meeting, make your test calls to coworkers or other people or outside organizations, whatever you want to do. Practice using the WPS and GETS together, that button on the dialer app that I was talking about. Test WPS after any changes. And if you have problems, report to the service center. So I see Sheena has a question. The dialer app has WPS, WPS plus GETS, and GETS button under service selection. How does WPS and GETS work? Okay, so WPS and GETS, that combined call, in order to use that button, you just have to choose who you're going to call. So you either choose from your contact list, you key in a phone number, or you use your recent calls redial feature. So once you've chosen who you're going to call, you're going to see that screen. Let me go back to it again. Hang on, I got to inch through all these things. Okay, so after you've chosen who you're going to call, you're going to see this screen there at the top on your app. And you'll see the phone number that you're going to be dialing. Underneath that, it says add to contacts. You can do that and add that contact to your phone if you'd like. But the WPS plus GETS button, what it does is, this is how I would explain it to people. So the WPS button and the WPS plus GETS, they work a little differently in that it's like if you opened up your cell phone mapping application and you put in an address you want directions to. Sometimes it'll give you one route. Sometimes it'll give you 3 or 4 routes to get where you want to go. That's really the difference between those two buttons. WPS is a straight shot. It should work for you most of the time and have no problem. The WPS plus GETS gives you multiple different paths, if you will, to push your call through severe congestion and congestion in that wireline telephone network. So I hope that answers your question, Sheena. If it didn't, please type something else and let me know that I didn't hit the mark for you. And when you're in the dialer app, to set up the dialer app for yourself, in the top right, there's 3 little dots. You're going to tap on those and tap on settings, and you will put your entire GETS PIN number off your card in the first box. That's really all you have to do. And then you'll be ready to make calls. If you don't have a Gets card, you can just use WPS only, and you don't, of course, don't have to add anything in the dialer app to indicate that. Okay, so we're back here. We're going to go over the dialer app a little bit more. I apologize, I couldn't remember if these slides were in there, so I wanted to cover it all. But the dialer app is so helpful. It just makes using these services so much easier, and it reduces error, and it's much faster. So let's get to the important part. So when you first download the app, you're going to see this screen right here. At the top of the screen, you'll see it says test call WPS/gets test call. That is that test call phone number that's on the back of your Gets card. And it is always going to sort to the top of the screen there for you. So it's available for you to use anytime you'd like. So the first thing you want to do is go up again to those three little dots in the top right and go to the settings menu. This is what the settings menu looks like. And you're going to put, again, your Gets PIN in that top box. The next box says test call number. The test call number is already loaded in the app for you. So why do we need this box? Well, if you would like to make your test calls to a coworker, a loved one, a specific number that you've been told to call, you can put that phone number in that box. And when you use that test call entry in your contact list, it will dial the alternate phone number that you put in that second box. So feel free to use that if you'd like to. If that encourages you to make your test calls and remember to do it, then that's fantastic. We want you to do that. Pause length should be defaulted correctly at 4. You can play around with that if you have any issues, but typically that should work fine. Calling outside the US. Again, the Gets works worldwide. Again, you're only getting priority when you get to the US network. So if you're in Germany and there's no congestion there, but there's congestion in the US, Gets could help get you through that. Gets and WPS on your phone. So if you think you might be using the services outside the US, you can toggle that on. It's going to add a 1 to your dial string. And it's important that your point of contact that's managing your account knows that as well, because they also have to turn that on in the portal for you, for it to be able to work. And then right below that Gets access number, you want to leave that at auto. Let the network choose the first available carrier for you. Let's just make this as easy as possible. That's the whole point of the dialer app. Make it easy to use. So really all you have to do here in settings is put your Gets PIN number in, and that's it, and a test call phone number if you'd like to change it to someone else. And we've got arrows. Okay, so you have 3 options to make a call. Very easy. This is a very straightforward, easy user interface. Again, you'll see that test call phone number at the top of the screen. It should always be there. You have your contact list, your keypad, and your recent calls list. So either one of, or any one of those will work for you to choose who you're going to call. And then you're going to get to, I apologize, I always forget those arrows are in there. You're going to get to how to make your call. So if you have both services, which we highly recommend that you have both, they are free and there's no reason really not to have them, but it's up to you. You know your organization better than we do. So you should get whatever service you feel is going to work for you. The WPS button, again, will make a WPS call. It will not dial in your Gets PIN number. It's just making a WPS call. It's utilizing that service that is connected to your account. And that should work for you. If there is a significant amount of congestion, again, the center button might help get you better options for your call to go through. If you want to use the center button every time you make a call, and that's what you can remember, that's okay. Just know that the 2 buttons on the left, use one of those and the other one if the first one doesn't work, is really the most important thing for you to understand. And then Gets, if some organizations only have Gets cards. Where I worked for 30 years, we only had a Gets card because WPS cost money back when I was working full-time there. So we didn't have WPS because we couldn't afford that budgetary amount. And we only had Gets, and no one trained us how to use it. So none of us knew what it was for. And when I retired, I pulled it out of my desk drawer and it was in an envelope and I wondered what it was for. And that's why this is important for me, that you all understand this and that you know you have this amazing tool at your disposal. Don't get the services and not tell anybody how to use them, because you're wasting your time setting all this up if no one's going to use it. Okay, so you can always hang up and try your call again. Network congestion can change in a moment. You can also move to a different location. I know that sounds kind of funny, but if you stand somewhere else, you might have better connectivity options. So if at first you don't succeed, try again. You can hang up and disable Wi-Fi calling on your device and try the Gets or WPS Plus Gets again. Wi-Fi calling is currently not supported, but it may work, so it's always worth trying. You can disable auto dial mode. Sometimes that helps. You're going to have to key in your PIN number automatic or the long way, I guess, on the keypad. And if you continue to reach an operator, you can give them your PIN again, and they will help you try to get that call through. So you have a lot of options to troubleshoot any issues that arise. If you're interested in the services and you don't already have them, please feel free to follow this link. It will take you to a registration page or an information submission page. You can submit some basic information, and then you'll be contacted to complete your registration and get your subscription done. And then whoever becomes your point of contact on the account, they will get login credentials to log into the online portal. That's where you add people, delete people, make any changes you need to make, see if anybody's using their services. You can look at that. So you'll get all that information to the POC, and then that person will go in, log into the account, and add everyone else in your organization. So it starts out with one subscriber gets the first Gets card and that login information. Then they can go in and add everyone else. And there's a bulk upload spreadsheet you're welcome to use if you're adding more than 20 people at once. You can list them all in this spreadsheet, upload it back to the portal, and the service center takes care of everything for you. So they're going to deal with the carrier. They're going to get your WPS added at that end, and you're good to go. So it's really the initial uplift can be a lot if you have a lot of people you're getting the services for. But once you get that done, it's very easy after that to manage. There's a lot of additional resources on PTS and the PTS website. There's also a lot of information about how to get help to do a communications exercise, how to get help with a cybersecurity assessment, how to get help with a physical security assessment of your building. One example of that was in Portland. Here I live in Oregon. Their dispatch center, their 911 center, was above the location where they did their repairs on their patrol cars. That's not really a good place to have a 911 center due to the amount of hazardous materials below. There could be an explosion. You just never know. So they can come in and help you with things like that and make suggestions. The other thing is the way these services have been used. I have a few stories. I have a friend who was a dispatcher she's 23 miles west of Portland. She had to make a call to call an air ambulance for a trauma patient. She couldn't get out because there was network congestion because something was happening in Portland. So 23 miles away. It doesn't have to be your event to be your problem. I heard somebody say that yesterday. I think that's a great way to put it. It does not have to be your event, but it may be your problem. And that's exactly what happened to her. She used her Gets card to call out. It worked great. We had a ski patrol in Idaho, and they had a report of someone having a cardiac event on the slopes. It was between Christmas and New Year's, so they had a lot of people skiing. Everyone had their phones with them. They had a lot of network congestion, and they always do. So they choose to communicate via radio. That works better for them. Well, their power got knocked out. Their radios weren't working. They just fortunately happened to have two people volunteering at ski patrol that were paid paramedics in the community. They had Gets and WPS on their cell phones, and that's how they all communicated to go save this person's life. So those are obvious uses of the services, and we've had people call into Teams meetings using these for COVID planning and any work-related information that you want to share. TSP was used in Oregon at the beginning of COVID when the statewide interoperability coordinator, or SWIC, was asked to get voice and data circuits installed at 5 different locations around the state of Oregon that were being set up as temporary hospital facilities for COVID patients. He called the carrier to find out how long it would take to get this done. It involved like some fiber, and it was a little bit involved. The carrier said it was going to be 6 weeks to several months to get this all done at all 5 locations. So he said, okay, I'm going to invoke my TSP. The state of Oregon has all their 911 circuits covered with TSP and many other state circuits. So he said, I'm going to invoke my TSP. We need this done as soon as possible. And all 5 locations were done in 36 hours. So that is an example of how TSP can work. It's a best effort response, but it does move you ahead of anybody with a service level agreement. And it's a very powerful service for a small amount of money. Anyway, these 2 QR codes will get you more information. And I'm also very happy to send you any handouts I have, talk to you about the services, share whatever information I have, and get you connected with your PAR. So this is a map that shows all of the other PARs and myself and our regions that we cover. And if you can't read this and it's hard to see, I'm happy to send the information to you. But we have people spread out all around the country, and we've divided up the country, and then the federal government and military and all of that is one PAR that handles that. So those are your PARs, the other people that do my job, and they are happy to help you. They're all very knowledgeable, very experienced. We care about making sure that people know these services are out there and that you have access to them easily. And that's it. That's my information on the last slide. I'm happy to go back to any slide you'd like or explain anything else if anyone has any questions. Happy to answer those now. Everybody's very quiet.
Looks like we got some folks typing.
Yep, I will be happy to wait for their questions. You're very welcome. That would be a question. Is the session recorded?
Hi, Sheena. Yeah, the session is recorded. We'll post the recording to our website in about 48 hours.
Great.
And then the slides are available for download in the files pod. That first file that's in there is today's slides. And then there's a lot of other resource documents in that files pod, folks. So make sure you're downloading all of those.
Yeah, there's a copious amount of information about these services on the website. And if that feels overwhelming to you, or you prefer to learn via something like this, or just talking on the phone, we're happy to help you in whatever way works best for you. The PARs can come out to your location and do training for all your staff if you'd like that. We go to conferences and travel around. I was at the Volunteer Organizations Active in Disasters conference a couple weeks ago. I'm going to several more conferences in the coming weeks. So we try to get out there and get the word out. But we are also very happy to do virtual training for you anytime you'd like. It's all free. Our time comes at no cost to you. So please utilize our services so we can get you set up and ready for success.
Great. Feel free to keep writing in those questions, folks. I guess I'll go ahead and start closing out. Real quickly, I am going to launch today's webinar feedback survey. It just takes a few minutes to complete. If everyone would take a moment to complete that, it helps us to know what's working well and improve upon what is needing it. They are anonymous, so feel free to be completely candid.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Please be candid. If there's something that we need to change in the way we present this, I'm happy to hear that. So please. Hurricane season, 3 weeks in Florida. Yes, hurricane season, we see these services used a lot. And typically during hurricane season, cellular networks are very fragile, really, and they get damaged and destroyed, and makes it hard to have cellular communications. So GETS tends to be used quite a bit. If you live in an area where, maybe nothing happens regularly like that, you may still need to use GETS. So it's really good to practice using it because, again, when patience is low and emotions are high in the middle of an event is not the time you want to try to figure out how to make a GETS call. That said, you can have stockpile cards or a cache of cards that are generic to give out to people if you need to, if something significant happens. You can also get what is called position cards. So the card, instead of having someone's name on it, could say CEO or sheriff or director or whatever it is, and then the card is passed from one person in that role to the next. And that includes getting cards for maybe you have an emergency operations center you set up and you have phones in there. You can get a GETS card and zip tie it to that phone, and anybody sitting there could use GETS. So there's a lot of ways we can help you with those kinds of things. So please reach out if you have any questions.
Well, thank you again so much for your time and preparation with this, Kathy.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. And it looks like people got a lot of great information. Those of you in the audience, we hope you can join us for our next webinar. That is going to be on May 30th, Strategies for Navigating Change with Your Tribal Department Staff. As always, registration is free. And you can feel free to access the recording of this webinar along with any of our other webinars at our website, nativelearningcenter.com. There's a CISA webinars tab with a recorded webinars section. So you can go back through all the webinars that we have for the past 2 years. And I have linked that in the chat also. Please also check out our upcoming events posted to our various social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We have an in-house produced podcast, the Hope Athenga Native American podcast, where we discuss more focused topics within Native American housing and self-determination. You can listen to that on Simplecast, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And you can view the video recordings with our guests on YouTube. All right, folks. Once again, I want to thank all our participants for joining us today. Thank you again, Kathy. I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of their day, and we hope to connect with all of you again real soon.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right, folks. Have a great rest of the day. Take care. I'm going to close out now.